Hello, I'm Hindol Sengupta. I am delighted today to join Amit Sarwal in this conversation. I invited Amit from Melbourne to join me in this conversation because something very interesting is happening in Australia today. The Khalistan Referendum is being done in Australia today. This has been building up for many weeks and months. The Khalistan movement, which really today has presence only the separatist movement, which demands a separate Khalistan nation carved out of Indian Punjab, only has its footprint in the West, in America, in Canada, in the UK, and its latest chapter seems to be growing in Australia. Why is this happening? Who are the people fueling it? We know that one of the main sources of money for the Khalistan movement comes from Pakistan, but Pakistan itself is in deep doldrums. Its economy is destroyed. So, who's fueling the Khalistan movement in Australia? To talk to me about all that is Dr. Amit Sarwal. Dr. Amit Sarwal is an academic. He's also the founder of a newspaper in Australia, which looks at Australian issues and diaspora issues. And he does a lot of work in the community, in the diaspora community in Australia. Amit, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Hindol. Thank you for inviting me.
Amit, we'll get straight to the point. What's going on in Australia? How has the Khalistan movement, of all things in the world, suddenly popped up in Australia?
It's quite surprising, Hindol, but for the last decade, I've been observing the South Asian community in Australia. We have people who have been, running away from such movements and coming to Australia because it was untouched by these movements, which has affected seriously the Punjabi community. So I won't use the Sikh community. I'll use the word Punjabi community, particularly in Canada and UK, and now even USA. But this kind of movement was never heard of in Australia. Australia is a very vibrant, peaceful, multicultural community. Everyone is here. I do acknowledge that people come here with their baggage, cultural, political, and social baggage. But this kind of movement taking roots was not heard of. But I'm not surprised that they are here. They must have been doing some groundwork, recruiting people, academics, journalists, policymakers, because these are the people that are, hidden. They don't come at the front. So they have been recruiting these people to build on the idea of Khalistan as a very peaceful movement in Australia. So at this stage, Australian policymakers do not know, or do not actually know how to engage with this kind of ideology.
Amit, the Khalistan movement has absolutely no offtake, or has very little offtake today in the Punjab in India. Of course, it has a history, a background of a separatist movement in the Punjab, which was led infamously by this militant preacher called Brindanwale. Of course, we know about finally the decision of the Indian government to storm the Golden Temple, for which an Indian Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, was assassinated.
Yes.
He, of course, gave orders to the Indian army to storm the Golden Temple, the holiest site of the Sikhs, in order to flush out terrorists from the led by Brindanwale in the Golden Temple. All of this is, this is a 1970s, 80s story, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? For a long time, there has been peace in the Indian Punjab. Of course, this has been brewing in other parts of the world, especially fueled by Pakistani and ISI money. ISI, of course, is Pakistan's infamous spy agency. Now, Canada has been one place which has a very large Punjabi population where some of these issues have cropped up. And they have spread from there to parts of the United States and, of course, increasingly in the UK. How did it come to Australia? We've also heard and seen images of 2 Hindu temples being attacked in Australia. How did that happen? Who are the leaders of this movement in Australia? Where do you think they're getting their resources from? And within the Punjabi community in Australia, is there support for such a movement?
Okay, so there were 3 temples in total which were vandalized. One was the Bap Swaminarayan temple in Mills Park, the Sri Shiva Vishnu temple in Carams Down, and the third one was the ISKCON temple. And you can see, so the first temple that was vandalized had a message for Modi as well, equating him to Hitler and so many things. But that was a very Gujarati Babs Swaminarayan temple is a very Gujarati temple, and then these people shared it on social media, the alleged Khalistani supporters, and then they blamed the Indian government and Hindus themselves for vandalizing their temple, which was kind of very shocking for the all Indian Australian community. Even the members of the Jewish community came out, and they supported the Hindu community and said this is not welcome in Australia, because if this can happen to the Hindu places of worship, this can happen to the next churches, and other places of worship can also be targeted. So this is this. You are very right that the initial movement was supported by ISI, Pakistan's, the nefarious. I don't know if it's intelligence agency or intelligent enough, but they did support it. Now Pakistan's economy is totally gone thanks to supporting such activities abroad. Uh, but now the movement, I think, is sustained through ventures from inside the supporting community. So it's not known. It's See, these people do not come out in the open. They're still using the Sikhs for Justice name, the Canadian American organization that Gurpawan Singh Pannoon runs. So at this
Which
stage, they're
the
still running.
government has banned that
Yes,
organization.
it's a banned organization. They're not registered in Australia as well. We haven't been able to find out if it's registered in Australia, but they have hired a PR agency, uh, and they have, as I said, they have cultivated certain groups that non-governmental organizations that they portray themselves to be working for human rights, justice, peace, right, and poetry, uh, these kind of arts. But at the end of the day, they are the extension of the Khalistan movement.
Mm.
So if you will ask me, name a few people, top people in Australia who are supporting Khalistan movement, I won't be able to give you, because these people are hidden, right? They have deep pockets. They're supporting it. They support the local politicians as well. So basically what our understanding is that they have told their advisors to multicultural advisors to politicians as well. So they have advised them that this is a very legitimate uh, call from the, say, Sikh community, which Sikhs also oppose. So to just give you a background, Indian community in Australia is 780,000 strong. In that, we have 200,000 Punjabi Sikhs, basically Sikh community from all over the world. Kenyan Sikhs, Canadian Sikhs, or Malaysian Sikhs have come here, Singaporean Sikhs, and 60,000 Sikhs live in Victoria. So if you look at the referendum, not even 10, I think less than 10% people have joined the referendum today. But I won't be surprised if these people boost their numbers and they send media releases that 20,000 people came to our rally, or 20,000. That's not happening. So within the Sikh community, within the Punjabi community, there is a clear sense that these people are not welcome. They are shunning their ideology. But because these people are very vocal, these people are all over social media, you will see that only their ideology is kind of screened all the time. And the people who oppose it do not get a voice, do not get a platform where they can air their views and say, look, we don't support this kind of movement. Even today, when one of my colleagues was at the Federation Square near the referendum, he had a casual chat, not on video, with a few people. They said they have come to participate in the referendum to vote no. And the person said that no one from mainstream media, no one from the policy making side of the government is asking us what we want. They're actually asking these people who are running the Khalistan referendum as if they represent us in the wider community. So there is this clear sense of alienation amongst the people who do not support this movement.
Amit, one of the things that many people don't understand about this so-called Khalistan referendum, of course, is that the Sikhs for Justice is not really a poetry or a social work organization at all.
mm,
It and has always been an organization that has solely worked for separatist movements in India.
yes,
Now, the interesting thing is, if this is a genuine referendum, even their map only shows the Indian Punjab. But of
yes,
course, we all know that the Indian Punjab was broken into two parts
mm,
during partition. When
yes,
India became independent in 1947, Punjab, along with Bengal, were two sides,
mm,
west and east, which were broken into two parts. One
mm,
part went to Pakistan, the other part remained with India. Now, of
mm,
course, Pakistan lost the eastern side also, which became Bangladesh later.
mm,
The Indian side continues. There's a Pakistani Punjab, which
mm,
Lahore is its main sort of city, and of
mm,
course there's Indian Punjab. Interestingly, even though the Khalistan referendum claims that it really wants an independent Sikh homeland, it
mm,
never includes the Pakistani part of Punjab in their map or in their referendum. So
mm,
essentially, it only talks about territories within India and
yes,
Indian Punjab and other places like Himachal Pradesh and all of that, which is
mm,
ridiculous. And that has always given us a sense on where these motivations are coming from. Because if you genuinely want a referendum, you would at the very least include the whole of the Punjabi, area, so to speak, which is Punjab in India and Punjab in Pakistan.
yes,
But that has never been true. And that's why their nefarious ideas and their hypocritical ideas have always been clear.
yes.
Tell me, you began by saying that all of this was never in Australia. Indeed, this was never in Australia. Australia and India share, at the moment, historic ties which are at an all-time high.
Mm,
Do you think this is an effort to, in a sense, derail those ties? Because
yes,
Australia and India have signed a historic trade deal. The bonhomie between the two countries seems to grow with every passing month. Do
yes.
you think such a referendum is being done to derail India's ties with Australia, which are at an all-time high?
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it that this the whole process is designed, or just like the map which is made in Pakistan. The whole idea, um, I I call it a chaotic ideology. They have no end point in sight, and even the people who are working for this ideology know that. But they just want to derail, cause chaos, cause frustration among the community, among the policymakers. If you will see that in the last 4 years at least, and with the new government here, the previous government of Scott Morrison, which was a liberal government, and with the new Labour government, which is continuing all the promises that liberal made to India, it is very clear. And if I can just point out, I said that in the last 10 years, I had no kind of, I couldn't trace it back,
How
but
long have you been in Australia, Amit? For
uh,
about years?
uh,
More.
almost a decade now.
Almost
Uh,
decade. So in your
so
decade in Australia, you've never seen this
no,
before.
no, but in around 2016, 17, there was a slow attempt to. So you see, Indians came to Australia as British Indians, right? There was no differentiation between this is Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, right? They were just coming as British Indians, working as for the camel trade route or in the pastures, and other places. They also fought wars for the Australians here. They went to the Great War. So, but I can see that there is a group of people who used public historians, all the research that they did, and they started differentiating between the Indians' history in Australia, and this started with the Islamists first. What they did was that the Muslim presence in Australia is goes to 1880s, which is right, because these people were Muslim, but they are not Muslims in the sense they are coming from Arab, or they're coming from say Lebanon, right? These were the Indian Muslims. They were coming here as British citizens, and they had no idea about that they are coming as Muslims here. They were just coming as workers. So slowly these people also started picking, and they started separating Indian history, or dividing Indian history between Sikh history and the others, basically. And they have created this kind of narrative that Sikhs have been coming to Australia
Mm.
way back, which is true. But the whole point is you cannot.
Indians as one community, Indians.
Yeah,
So
they're coming in, and
coming for
most of the
India from
names are just, and you can see most of their names are like Hari Singh, Ram Singh. Singh is a very common surname, and when Britishers are putting people in boats, they are not worried about your whole family name. They will just say everyone is Singh, Ram Singh, Ram Singh, Ram Singh, right? I've lived in Fiji. They also talk about the same thing. Most of the surnames were gone, so it was
Mm.
just whatever pronunciation of the name the English guy or the British guy could do. But they have been differentiating. They've been trying to alienate one section of the community from the others. Now all the gurdwaras, I used to go to a gurdwara. I'm a Punjabi Hindu. My family belongs to Punjab. And one of the things I said, that the sense of the bhaichara, right? The
Mm.
word, the
The,
friendship
friend,
between the two communities.
the
We
community feeling, the friendship,
feeling
yes.
was there. But uh, since last year, when this Khalistani thing started coming up, and we have started investigating the deep roots of the Khalistani movement in Australia at present, I had a chat with a number of people, and they said that they have stopped going to certain gurdwaras. So at this stage, we know of two or three gurdwaras which are very prominent Khalistan supporters.
Which ones are these?
One is, I think, the Mili Pili Gurdwara,
Mm.
which is kind of a regional Gurdwara. The other one is Craigieburn, again, one of the northern suburbs, out of the main city kind of thing. And so the other thing I can note is that at this stage, I do not see academics or major journalists who are Punjabi origin or say Sikh coming out in the open to support the Khalistan movement, like Canada. In Canada, you will actually see doctors, engineers from Punjab, Sikh community, or even you have the Jagmeet Singh, right? NDP's
Yeah.
key leader who supports the Khalistani movement. At this stage, we do not see anyone coming out in the open to say yes, we support the Khalistani movement. It's the ground workers basically at this stage who work in the, say, gurdwaras, people who are working as farmers or farm hands. Near Melbourne, we have an area which is prominently Punjabi, communities there. There are other groups more of the laborer class who have come from villages in Punjab. Recently, we did a investigation, and we found out that certain organizations are promising the lure of permanent residency of Australia to these people. They're saying, if you support our cause, we will give you money for permanent residency. The fees, maybe 7,000 or $10,000 is the fees in total that you have to pay to apply for residency of a family. So they're saying we will support you. The other thing that we noticed in today's referendum, particularly, was older people uh, participating in the referendum. Now, one of the things is that most of these people are on tourist visa or parent visa, so they do not have the Australian citizenship or residency. So these people are brought. So a lot of older people, parents of these people, are being brought there to vote for the cause. Buses were booked. They have booked cars, taxis to bring these people. Um, I do not see an end. What's the logical end? As you said, that the Punjab, the map is funny, right? Anyone, and we have pointed it out to the people there. Kartar Sahib is missing. Nankana Sahib is missing. Most of the important sites, Sikh sites
Yeah.
in Pakistan are
I mean,
missing.
Lahore was the great, as you know,
Yeah,
Lahore was the great capital of the great Sikh
yeah,
kingdom.
and
I mean, Maharaja Ranjit
yeah,
Singh, great hub was Lahore.
yeah.
The funny enough, the Khalistan referendum doesn't want Lahore. I mean, that is the most
They
ridiculous
want
thing.
they want Shimla. I mean,
Yes,
how high are you? High are you when you're making that map? Shimla is famous for something. I'm not pointing to that Shimla is only famous for something, but how high is the person who's making this map? They have
quite
they
right.
have portions of Bihar. They have portions of Rajasthan.
Yeah,
It's cut. It
but not
reminds
Lahore,
you of
I mean,
not
not.
Lahore. That's
Yeah.
why I said that the map is actually made in Pakistan. Apart from that, there is no logic, and most of the vocal support that Khalistanis are getting on social media and in Australia are from the Pakistan side. So if you look at all the social media, they have created fake accounts through Pakistan. We have, one of our colleagues has actually reported thousands of accounts to Twitter, but they come back again. So I don't know how Twitter is working at this stage, but this has been mostly, as I said, ground reality. um, Australians are shunning Khalistani movement. At this stage, the Anglo-Australians have no idea what Khalistan is. All they see is Indian Sikhs or Punjabi Sikh community serving the wider community during bushfires, floods, right? So Khalistanis are hijacking that the goodwill that Indian Sikh community has made in Australia. So
Tell me,
that's the problematic part.
sometimes what happens is these things then local politicians, where there are large bands of Khalistanis who are able to maybe gather votes, they start pressurizing local,
Oh,
politicians to push that. And those politicians sometimes may not even know the details about this.
no.
This is
So
exactly what happened in Canada. This is being
yes,
attempted in the UK. To say
yes,
that we canvass for votes during an election for you, we'll get this many votes. You have to, push our cause.
yes.
Is that already? Are you seeing signs of that, or that's still very far away?
No, there were signs of. I don't know if it was directly related to the Khalistan movement, but there were. So in India, we call it vote bank, right?
Yeah.
So this is our vote bank basically. So pamper this community or pamper this ideology. Here it's called vote stacking.
Mm.
Basically what you do is, so here basically if you want your agendas to be passed, say you need to be member of that party, or if you want, say, Amit to fight an election on XYZ party ticket, I need to be member of that party and I also need my supporters. So what people are doing here, they are making members of one community members of this particular political party to push their agendas and push their the candidate. And this will happen. I totally agree with your statement that this something like Canada would happen, where you will have actual vocal Khalistani supporters entering parliament as well. But surprisingly, in Canada, you must have heard of Brampton and Surrey, the two major hubs where Punjabi
Yeah.
or in Indian community lives. In Brampton, during the local elections, the person who was supporting Khalistani movement lost the election.
Yeah, and there's been a pushback around the world. There's a pushback,
And
like
the
you said,
push,
it's already a pushback.
yeah, and this is a result of Canada changing its migration policy as well, because Trudeau somehow he got some sense and he cannot come out. But in the last 3 years, he has changed the Canadian migration policy to which is very Australian kind of thing, skill based. Now,
Mm.
when it comes to skill based migration policy, IT, accountant, doctors, engineers, so not just the northern, but the southern,
Yeah.
um,
So people.
western,
Yes.
northeastern people get a chance to come. Before
Right.
that, there was a kind of policy which was based on sponsored visa. So if you're
Yeah.
a Punjabi in there, I can sponsor three people. I can just show, they will live with me. I will support them with their food for 1 year or 2 years, and then they will get a job. And the job was basically in-house kind of thing. They were driving
Low,
trucks and
low, yeah, low level menial jobs.
yeah. So that was kind of a racket that was working,
Yeah.
which thanks to the new immigration policy has changed, and therefore you have a new age. In the last 5 years, you have educated Indians basically coming to these countries. That's why even in the referendum, it would be hard to point out that I can see someone I know who moves, who's well known in that circle. But there is a major concern at this stage. I've been pointing out that any infatuation with Khalistani ideology always leads to desperation.
Yeah.
And the desperation we saw was the acts of vandalism in the Hindu temple.
And
And
remember, this desperation finally landed to the bombing of an aircraft.
yes,
In Canada.
and the third stage, obviously, in the psychoanalysis, is the violence stage where it erupts out, and it has erupted out today. So just to give you an example, so the referendum is basically a voting process, right? Just like when you go to a voting center.
Yeah.
So they have booked some two
Right.
or three rooms for referendum at the heart of Melbourne CBD, which is Federation Square. So if you have booked 2 rooms, your lines would be out in the open. In the morning, there was a decent crowd of 200, 300 people, right? Maybe 300 more coming in through buses or something like that. By evening, these people had spread out to the whole Federation Square. And if you are not a Sikh, and if you are someone who looks like me or you and carrying a camera, they were pushing them away in the presence of police. They were saying, "You're not welcome to this site." Now, it's a public place, right?
mm,
Imagine doing this in front of the police,
mm,
which finally resulted, and there were Indians also doing, Indian Australians doing a peaceful march with the Indian tricolor. In the presence of police, these guys attacked
mm,
them with rods and whatever. We have reports of one guy whose head got bashed up pretty badly. He's in hospital, and the other guy had a fracture of hand. So he was reporting to us that what's happened, and he said the police is not doing anything. They're trying to tell other people to move away from this place rather than telling these guys to go back to your referendum room. So they have taken over a whole. It's just like taking over a whole Connaught Place in Delhi, just to give you some idea, right? So they are everywhere in the Federation Square at this time, and they're telling people to go back. So it's not a peaceful referendum as you will imagine, or as they would make the people believe here.
Tell me, Amit, the other thing that we also noticed is, and this is happening in some other parts of the world also,
Hmm.
um, other Indians, and these are Indians from all kinds of areas in India, people from the north, people from the south. They are also a very prominent diaspora community, right?
Hmm.
And they are coming together to fight back against Khalistanis. We saw something like this happened in Australia, where a
Yes,
lot of Indians gathered together to sort of face up with the Khalistanis. We're seeing it in other parts of the world too. Do you
yes,
think that's also beginning? Then that's a positive side, that other Indians are coming together, including Indians from Punjab, who are saying
yes,
we're not part of this. You don't speak for us.
yes.
And you're a minority group trying to stir trouble. We are not part of this, and pushing back.
Yes, it has started happening here. But if just to give you a context, what's happening in America is that you have prominent Indian American lawmakers now, politicians, congressmen, who have vocally said that we do not support such movement. In Australia, we haven't seen that. In Australia, I'm just talking about the last 20 days when the vandalism took place. We had a template statement from all politicians. We support free speech, we support all religions. This doesn't make sense. You have to come out and say, I do not support Khalistani ideology. Unless you do that, you're sending a very confusing message to the people who do not support Khalistani movement from within the community. What's happening is that these people are showing their photographs with prominent politicians. Look, I know this guy, I know this guy. So who would you believe, right? Um, if someone shows me his pictures with the premier or prime minister, I would say, his ideology is supported by these politicians, unless the politician comes out and say, no, we don't support it. So at this stage, the message is not clear. Yes, there are Indian Australian community members who are going out. In If you remember, last year there was a case of a young Haryanvi student in Sydney, Harris Park area, where he stood with a tiranga um, in amongst the Khalistani protesters, and he was bashed. He also fought back, and the judge clearly said that you will be provoked, you should not be provoked, basically, when such things happen. So it is happening. But if you look at Indian Americans, they are a very organized group.
Mm.
At this stage, I do not see. We have like 65 associations in all, in just Victoria. Then you have other associations all over the states. It's very hard to join people, um, you know, under one umbrella and say this is our leader. Everyone thinks they are a leader here. Um, we have so many breakaway factions within the Indian Australian community, and I'm talking about everyone. I'm just not talking about Hindus. I'm talking about Muslims, Christians, and the religious groups, the socio-cultural groups. If you are not happy, you start your own organization, basically. So, you want to be the chairman, or you are not happy with the president, you start a small association, you get a funding. Local councils are very good, they fund you. immediately. So that's not happening amongst the people who oppose such
Yeah.
ideology. And the other thing is that narrative is everything right now. Twitter, social media, Facebook narrative is everything. And these people know how to create narrative. We have seen that in the CA protest and farm protest as well. We have seen this, they were able to get Rihanna to tweet, right? So the opposition groups are not able to. Recently, Khalistan Referendum held a public seminar where public was not welcome. So they had handpicked. It was like a closed room meeting where only invited people were allowed inside. They had an indigenous person, so they know how to, jump the bandwagon, join the bandwagon, and they had a Anglo-Australian, a white professor as well there, who said that he doesn't support Khalistan movement, but he supports freedom of speech, which is again very, confusing. Do you know anything about the Khalistan movement? No, but I still support their idea that they want something. So in that, someone said that Khalistanis are the indigenous people of Punjab, which is, I think, not even a statement that they can substantiate at this
No,
stage. So if you
that's not
go
true.
back, that's not,
Sikhism is a very, very recent, if you look at India's long history, Sikhism is a very recent religion in that sense, right? I mean, it
yeah,
only goes back to
Maharaja
it
Dilip
only goes
Singh,
back to the Mughal era.
yeah,
Sikhism is a creation of the Mughal period. I mean, so
Maharaja
to
Dilip Singh in his
so
book clearly
indigenous people
says,
of Punjab is untrue.
yeah, so Maharaja Dilip Singh in his book clearly says that Sikhism is an outshoot of Hinduism,
It
which is
is, and for a
uh,
long time,
yeah.
some people deny this, but if you go to the Punjab and if you look at history, it was always considered, in a sense,
So,
very much integrated to the larger sort of pantheon of Hinduism,
so tech,
and as a martial
yeah,
community among the wider Hindu community.
yeah. So it's only in 1606 that it actually becomes a martial kind of race under Guru Har Gobind Singh Ji, right?
Correct. Before
So
that, with the Guru Nanak and all of that,
yeah,
it was just a
so Guru
community.
Nanak, yes. So many people see that this movement is hijacked
Hmm.
within the Sikh community by a particular group.
Correct.
So you have
Correct.
Sikh community which has Sanis, Chavlas, the Khatri community, the
Mhm.
Punjabi, and then you have the Jat Sikhs as
Mhm.
well. So they believe that they are hijacking it for political reasons, which can be looked into. Obviously, it's a allegation worth looking into, that who's hijacking these movements on behest of who. But there is this clear thing that, pointing out that we are the indigenous people of Punjab, like it's just to make this indigenous person understand the plight, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this guy is not going to Google up. I know that he's come there, maybe he's paid, he's not paid, he's just a good Samaritan who wants to support a good cause. Whatever narrative you served him, he believed in that. So at this stage, I think the Indian, Australian, particularly the Indian government or the High Commission here, even the Australian government, should release something which tells the clear history and genealogy of Khalistan movement and what they have done. It's not just the Hindus they killed everyone in Punjab who opposed their thing. They didn't ask who was dying in the Canadian, children. These people are still suffering, and they never got justice in Canada because
Correct.
the government swept it under the carpet there as well. So people are afraid that these things would happen in Australia. The frustration levels are rising, obviously, within the Indian Australian community, but also the people who oppose them, because they need a clear message from the government that you do not support this ideology, and that's why we can come out. If you can see people beating other people
Mm.
in front of the police and police not doing anything at that particular point, that doesn't give you confidence to oppose anything.
Mm.
So
In conclusion, Amit, I think what you're basically saying is that concern is growing about this in Australia. It's still fairly limited, but concern is growing. And there's definitely, as the Pakistani economy sinks further and further, and how long Pakistan will also exist as a unified country, there are big question marks. There
yeah,
will be, Kashmir is, I mean, the Pakistanis, no matter what they say in public, they know that Kashmir is a finished chapter. No, nothing more can be done there. There's a desperate attempt to, trigger the Khalistan movement again.
Yeah.
Since it can't be done from inside India, the attempt is to do it from outside India.
Yeah.
And Australia is the latest chapter. Well, thank you very much, Amit, for giving us a perspective about what's going on. This is clearly a story that both you and we will be tracking very closely. Thanks for talking to me. I'm Hindol Sengupta from Global Order. Talking to me was Dr. Amit Sarwal from Melbourne, tracking very closely the Khalistan movement and its story that's starting to really make news in Australia. Thank you for watching.